Hi my friends, it's Marta here. Today I'm coming to you with the sample pack I received from the Creative Essential series. This is gonna be my commission, part of the commission for the magazine. The magazine will be coming in January. I believe it's the middle of the January, but it's October now, so I'm gonna be creating some inspiration which you will see in the magazine. Before I'll start, let me just quickly show you the theme, the leading theme for the magazine. It's gonna be designed by HUNKYDORY, and it's this cottage garden, country living. There's lots of the this rustical vibe element, but look on that, everything is got this beautiful gold foiling. There's lots of flowery elements as well, and there is some insert pages. You basically get everything what is the best from the HUNKYDORY. Their foil cardstock, their insert pages, there is lots of them here with this beautiful country living theme as well. There's this double-sided cardstock which is also good for lots of different techniques, and you also got a very stiff cardboard pages as well. So here is some of the pages which you can see here. Oh, there's one of the pop-up elements. They already push up all of them, so very easy to use and create something out of it. And on top of that, you also have some crafty goodies which include this stamp set and die, happy birthday with the butterfly, and the embossing folder. And my job for today's video is to emphasize the embossing folder, and this is what I'm gonna be doing. I have a fun idea, and let me put the papers aside. And what I'm going to be using, apart from the elements here, I will be using some dies. This is Creative Craft product. They're nestables dies in hexagonal shape. And I have the acetate. I've decided I'm going to be doing the embossing on the acetate, but I want to do double embossing. So I want to do some embossing with the folder and follow up with the embossing powder. And for that, to do it on the acetate, you have to make sure that you have this heat resistant acetate which will not wrinkle as you're going to be adding the heat on it. So without any further ado, I'm going to speed up the rest of the video and I'll show you my idea for the card. I hope you will enjoy it, and if you do, please don't forget to say hi in a comment, to leave a like, and to share it with your friends. Maybe they like this technique as well. Stay blessed, and I'll see you on card making part. I am starting from using the largest hexagonal die, and I will need to cut myself 3 pieces out from the white cardstock. Once I have all 3 layers cut, what I'm gonna do, I will be needing to cut some aperture in 2 of the layers. So for that, first I am trying to find the perfect shape which is large enough to fit my stamp image, but it will also fit nicely with the embossing folder. Once I've choose my perfect shape, what I'm gonna do, because I want to cut it on 2 layers, and instead of cutting it once and then try to figure it out the same positioning, what I will do, I will join 2 pieces together using the double-sided, using the masking tape, and I'm just securing the corners of the 2 pieces. So once I will run it through my die cutting machine, I will have the same position on both aperture, and they will be just matching perfectly. And here's my tip, my friends, that whenever you're struggling to release the tape, just take your heating tool and just heat up the tape for a couple seconds, and this way you will be able to take it off nicely without any tearing of the paper. And this way, once you heat up, the tape is just coming very nicely, very easily, and this will work also on all the label stickers. If you ever have to take off the label from a jar, you can also use the same tip. Just heat up the sticker or any adhesive part, and once the glue will heat up a little bit, then you'll be able to take it off nicely. Now I am using slightly larger hexagonal die, which is 1 size bigger than my aperture, and I'm just cutting the same shape from the foil. What I'm gonna do with this piece, I will run it through my embossing folder, and then I will do the double embossing following with the embossing powder.
So I'm just placing my foil in the embossing folder, and I'm just checking how to for the best placement so my design will look nicely in the aperture. And once I have it embossed, it's just looking beautiful. You can leave it like that. If you don't have the heat resistant acetate, don't worry, you can just skip the next part, because if you decide to do embossing on the non-heat resistant acetate, your foil will melt and curl up. So it's better to leave it, or you can use the alcohol ink and then just like use a brayer to add a slightly wash of the color on the design if you prefer to. As you can see here, I just have my embossing pad, which is hardly almost black now, but I've been using it over and over again, and I've just made sure that the pad is juicy, so I add a couple drops of the embossing ink, and then I've used my brayer. Using a brayer will help you to get your embossing powder only on the rise areas. And a very important thing here, I'm sure you've seen that in the video, I've used plenty of the baby powder to take off the static. Unfortunately, one thing working with the acetate is very static, and it will just attract all the little parts. So you just want to make sure that you will cover your foil with some baby powder or anti-static tool before you will start adding the embossing powder on it. I'm just making sure I have this nice design. I'm just cleaning up couple bits, couple areas with the brush, and then I will set the powder using my heating tool. And because we use the brayer, as I've mentioned, I only get the embossing ink on the rise area. It would be much harder to achieve the same look if I would be just smearing the pad, because the ink pads, they usually have this little bit spongy area, and once you press it, there is a risk that you will add some ink in between the areas. So it's always better to use the brayer instead. Here I am just heating up the powder, and I'm just waiting for the powder to melt, and this design just looked beautiful. This will be lovely for any card ideas. You'd not necessarily need to have an aperture. You can set the foil on top of the white cardstock or any other color cardstock, and that will be looking really nice as well. To adhere my foil to this card, what I'm going to be using, I am adding the glossy accent glue to all the sides of my aperture, and then I'm just pressing the foil on top of it. I'm using couple stamping blocks just for a weight, and after a minute or two I'm just releasing them, and as you can see, the foil has adhered here beautiful. You can use a double-sided tape. I would definitely recommend to use a red tape if you're playing with the acetate, because I think it's just holding nicely, but for me the glossy accent is just working perfectly for that. To adhere both hexagonal shape together, I am adding this double-sided tape to all the external edges along the edge line, and this way I will have this nice professional finish. And then in the area around the acetate, I will again use the glossy accent glue just to adhere it all nicely. As you can see, I am not taking the release papers entirely. I am just taking them halfway through, and then I am just leaving them. This way it is much easier to marry up all the sides, because you've got this little bit of the cushioning from those release paper, which will help you to move the paper around. And I'm just making sure that all the corners are matching, and once I'm happy, then I am just pressing with my hand and take off the release paper. This way it's just really looking nicely, and both the shapes are just, glued together perfectly. I'm taking this remaining page from the time I was cutting those big shapes, and I'm just cutting myself a little rectangle. I'm not worried about the size, because I'm gonna be cutting elements from it later on. I just needed a part to be embossed with the folder, and then I'm gonna use my finger daubers and a couple of the Distress Oxide inks just to color the couple of the floral elements. And I'm starting from the light coat. A couple of the daubers, I've just go back and add couple of the extra ink just to, you know, strengthen up the color. But basically, for most part, all the remain inks I had on my daubers, it was just enough to color the elements. And as you can see, I really like those triangle daubers. These are coming from the Creative Craft product from their Essential series. They do have the whole box with the 40 daubers, which are round, and the triangle, and these triangle shape one are really good to go to those smaller part and to just reach any every nook and cranny. And here you can see I'm fussy cutting 3 elements from the embossing folder, and I'm just using my little snip scissors, and once I have them done, I will just go over slightly just to help them color them a little bit more on the edge side, so I won't have those white edges. And I'm using the same combination of the Distress Oxide inks, and I will just list everything down below in a description area for you. And once I'm happy how they turn out, then I will move on to the next step, because I will need to create another element for my focal point on the card. My idea for today's card is actually create the focal point doing the combination of both the embossing folder and the stamp set. As you can see here, I already love how this aperture looks like, and I've decided to create those couple flowers just so I could have some extra elements to dress it up. But for the main focal point, I will be using this stamp from the set. I'm taking my stamping platform just to make sure I will have, you know, I could go over the stamp image like second or third time if I need to, because I want to use the same gold embossing powder on top of it. So what I will need the one stamp with the entire image, and then on top of that I will stamp additional layer of the floral composition, just so I could cut couple floral elements and create some dimension on my image. So as you can see, for the second impression, I'm not bothered to get the entire image because I'm not gonna be needing that. So I'm stamping couple times just to make sure I have this nice impression, and then I will cover up my image with the same gold embossing powder, and I will heat it up so the powder will melt. And then once my powder is set, I will be using some markers just to color the image. And for the first image, I will be coloring it entirely because I want to fussy cut and use it. And then the second little image, which you can see there's a part of the floral composition, I will be coloring only the couple of the flowers just so I could fussy cut them and place them on top of the full image. So this way I will have this nice dimension on my focal point. This is a very cheap aqua markers which I've bought at I've bought them in the BM store. They were just a few pounds, but they really work really well. They don't blend as professional aqua markers. They don't blend to the same you know, quality, but as for coloring little images, they just work really well. So that's why I like to use them, and I've been just coloring with them many times, and I quite like them. They have this nice combination of the colors and they just suit for all my needs. And now I just have to fussy cut the elements, and as I've mentioned, the first image I am just fussy cutting the whole area, and then for the second one I will only cut those few extra flowers which I've colored with the help of the markers. I will also very gently shape those little flowers just to give them even more dimension, and that way this all floral composition will be looking a lot more dimensional than just a flat image. So here you can see how the card is turning out. I really like it, but to make it look even nicer I will need some sort of the framing, and for that I'm just gonna use the same die sets which I use for my aperture and the external area, and then I will take a couple extra additional die just so I could create those thin frames. In this hunky-dory set there is this couple pages of this very sturdy cardstock with the colored area, and I think this one will be perfectly for my frame because this is a very stiff cardstock, so even if I cut those thin frame they are not going to be too much wiggly, and they will be just very easy to add on top of my card. And as you can see I'm just placing them in the center, just so I could use that nice light green color, and I think it's just gonna be matching perfectly with all the vibe of the card and the color composition which I have on the boot and on those flowers as well. I think the green one is just framing the card really nicely. All I will need for my card is to add some sentiment, and for that I've decided to stamp my sentiment directly on the card. And for this I really recommend you to use the stamping platform if you have, just so you could make sure everything is nice and neat. I had a little bit trouble of deciding whether I want to keep my sentiment on the bottom or on the top part, but then I've decided to put the composition towards the bottom side of my card, so I'm gonna be stamping my sentiment there as well. I'm using the black ink because I think the black color will be looking nicely, and that will make sure that the sentiment is really popping out from the composition on the card, so that will be nice and visible. And once my sentiment is ready, I can finally start assembling my card. So I am starting from adhering those frames, and for that I will use the glossy accent. You could use whatever glue you have on hand. I just like the glossy accent bottle because it has this nice nozzle. And once I add the glue, I am just slightly pressing on the paper, make sure that the frame is attached nicely, and make sure that you're not gonna be leaving any like empty space, because you don't want those frame to later on to come off and have that like a wonky space sticking out from the white surface. And then once I have my frame adhere, I can add my elements. Now as we adhering the boot to the acetate, I've decided to use the double-sided foam tape. Make sure, my friends, you can use the hot glue because this is a heat-resistant acetate, so I've just add a dash of the hot glue. But if you would use the regular acetate, make sure that you use other type of the adhesive, because if you press the hot glue you can actually destroy your acetate. This one is heat resistant, so everything is just holding up nicely, and I wanted to have a little bit of the dimension to the element. That's why I've backed it up with the foam tape. I'm just making sure that the flowers are looking nice and they're not covering up the sentiment. And as I've mentioned before, I am going for a little bit dimensional look. That's why I add those extra decoupage pieces to my to this flower composition on a boot. I will finish off my card by attaching this last piece, because so far we've been working on the front panel and I haven't joined the card first. I thought it will be just easier to work on the panel first, and then once I'm happy with everything, I am scoring the back piece in around 1 inch area from the top, and I will and I will create this top hinge card. For that, I'm using a combination of the double-sided tape and a dash of the liquid glue just to help me to have this additional extra wiggle room, so I could move my paper a little bit until I have this perfect position. And once I meet the corner, I'm just pressing and the card will be standing nicely. So as you can see here, I didn't do the great job since the first time, so I could easily peel off the card once the glue was still wet and just make sure I've just put it as straight as possible. And now I'm gonna be adding my last final touch, which is a couple of the pearls. I do have like a whole selection of different pearls in all sizes and colors, and I've decided to add just a couple of them to a flower center. I'm going with this slightly pinkish color pearls, which are very delicate, and I think they will just add that extra additional touch and a little bit of the luxurious feel to the card. I hope you enjoyed today's card idea. I know that the video was a little bit longer, but there was a lot of the things to do for this card. This is a special project. This is something you can create for like a for that special occasion card. You can use your own sentiment as well, instead of the thinking of you one, whatever you prefer. I think the card turned out really nicely. So, my friends, if you watch up till this point, let me know if you ever tried the double embossing technique on the foil. Please say hi in a comment. Let me know where are you watching from. Thank you so very much. I hope the card bring you some good ideas you decide to follow and create your version. Stay blessed, my friends, and I will see you on another video. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.